interviewing the leading private equity executives and unlocking the secrets of success. Welcome to the Private Equity Podcast with Alex Rawlings.
So hello, everybody. Joining us today is Nancy Barnes, a freelance HR professional working with private equity-backed portfolio companies. Welcome, Nancy, and thank you very much for sharing your insights into the private equity industry.
Hi, Alex. Thank you very much for that. I work for a number of different portfolio businesses within the PE houses, and I love scaling. I love organizational design and development, and for me, this particular type of work, I find extremely challenging and very enjoyable.
Excellent. So for those of us that don't know you, Nancy, give us a kind of a 60, 90-second breakdown of you, please.
Okay, so I've been working in the HR profession for a good number of years now. I started both in-house and out of house, so as a consultant and also working internally as an HR director. I've worked for a number of different industries, and I have also worked at an international level. So I've set up businesses and helped businesses, to set up in APAC and in the States and also in the Middle East.
Excellent. So latterly in your career has all been focused around private equity. I know you've worked for a couple of PE firms that I certainly was very familiar with that we discussed. So what's kind of the one mistake that you see either private equity firms or their portfolio companies making from a HR angle?
I believe communication is really important for these businesses, for the portfolio businesses. I believe that fundamentally, when businesses are communicating with their staff at the very outset of, we're bringing on investment, and this is, how the investment's going to work. To be very clear with them, that does mean some change will take place, and not all change is negative. I think the mistake that a lot of businesses make is when they say there's no change will happen. Everything stays the same. We're all good. We're all fine. We just carry on. And then inevitably change does happen because as part of the investment, there may be some future growth, acquisitions. That changes the actual core of the business. And some, staff are very open to feeling how that may impact them, and they're not quite sure why or what this change is or what's happening to them. So I think communication is really, really important.
So that's when a firm's been a private equity firm has acquired a new portfolio company, that communication around that kind of change model, and not kind of standing in front of the group and telling them nothing's going to happen and it's all going to be the same. I think as private equity comes in, it's because they want to do something with the business, and that's not the negative that we hear in the world. It's definitely the positive, the growth. How do we scale this business? How do we get more from the company, and how do we take more market share and everything else?
Absolutely. It's very exciting to receive investment, and it's very exciting to be inside a private equity house. And the challenge and the communications at this, especially at the very beginning, is so important that you bring the staff with you on this journey and you don't leave them behind. They will see and they will hear things. They will notice things that are changing, be it whether it's the senior management team that are changing, be it could be the company name, it could be the logo. A number of different things could change. For sure, from the HR side of it, there will be normally a growth of different activities, from policies to initiatives and programs, engagement. So the staff will experience or will have a lot of these different HR initiatives that they haven't seen before. And it's important if you bring them on the journey to bring them on the journey with you, so that they can be excited and grow with the business. Otherwise, you can end up with retention problems and engagement problems.
One of the things that we hear about a lot is when we're doing So one of our clients, private equity firms, acquired a new portfolio company, and they've taken that. It's a first-time PE deal, and they're looking at the business, and that cultural change is essential. That business is most likely what is common term used, especially in the States, is that kind of sleepy family-owned company, which is now going into being private equity backed and looking to shape up. What advice would you give to the portfolio C-suite team and the private equity team to be able to drive a cultural change coming from what's probably a laid-back type environment to something that's going to be a lot more fast-paced and and very different from what they've experienced previously?
Yeah. For the portfolio business themselves, there needs to be the engagement with the staff by way of communicating, by way of making sure that there is a very strong management team in place to help deliver the strategy that the CEO/founder has agreed with the private equity house. And I think from my experience, the PE houses are very clear in what they want from these businesses. And that needs to translate into strategy. And that strategy then needs to be delivered through the management team. And what I see sometimes is that the CEO/founder, they're too into the weeds. And when they're in the weeds, they because that's where they have come from, and that's because it's their baby, because it's their business. But if you're too into the weed, it's very, very difficult then as the CEO to actually step back and say, well, actually, I have this strategy, I need to deliver it, I need to have a strong team in place. I need to empower that management team to deliver. It's about delivery, and it's not necessarily the CEO's job to deliver everything. He needs to have the right team in place to do that delivery. It's a team effort. And without that team in place, there's going to be a lot of challenges and uphill and struggles. And the PE houses are very aware that good management teams are the key to their success.
No, absolutely. Well, you're proving you're preaching to the converted, certainly from that perspective, both for obvious reasons and talent is king. If you've got the right people in your business, you can take that forward. You can rely on those people, and it takes a lot of responsibility away. So I completely agree with that. So once you've got that business or you've got the right team in place, how there's going to be some changes most likely. There's going to be some fundamentals improvements across the business. What strategies have you kind of used previously to then kind of individually enhance that employee performance, and how do you drive that obviously to get more out of the team and deliver more for the business?
So in terms of employee performance, when a business becomes part of a PE house, I tend to find that there are the business, the original business, has been maybe very soft in how they have identified what the employee needs to do. So they may not be as clear in terms of direction, in terms of objectives, maybe KPIs in place. When the investment then comes on board, there is definitely a very short time frame to achieve what needs to be achieved. And I have used strategies where it's understanding what is it that the business needs to achieve. And that means working with maybe the CRO or the CFO or even the COO, and looking at what they want to achieve and addressing that with the use of maybe clearer performance metrics. How do you measure? What are you measuring? And how do you develop that employee in order to get them where you need to get them? I think it's important that you take stock of what you have, and how are you going to improve what you have? Do you need to bring on more resources? Do you need to identify the talent? Do you need to apply a particular development program? Do you need to grow your own, what I call grow your own staff? The talent pool is very difficult, very tight at this moment, as you mentioned, and talent is king. And a lot of businesses have what I call weak flight risk points. So if one person disappears from the business, sometimes the whole area just collapses in on itself, and everyone's panicking then because they just the business can't move or can't do anything because this one person is left or is away or is not there or not available. And I feel that with businesses, they need to take a step back when they first look at their staff, identify who's in the business, what do they do, are they clear? Are folks clear in what they do? I think you'd be surprised in some businesses if you ask people what do they do, they will say, "Oh, I wear several different hats. I do this, I do that," and that is natural because that's where they've come from. It's been founder led. Everyone wears 7 or 8 different hats. But as you get the investment, people then grow, and you become more, well, you don't need to wear this hat anymore. You are HR. You don't need to be facilities, finance, management, this, that, and the other, or you're not, you don't need to be worried about the revenue, because that's the job of, or the roles of the front office or the front of house. So there are lots of different ways to approach performance management, productivity, efficiencies. It all comes down to what is their business strategy? What is it that they're trying to achieve? Is it growth, or is it streamlining, more efficient processes? Is it harmonization or restructure?
Absolutely. And when we tend to work with firms, they tend to well, not all of them, but a lot of them tend to go on that add-on acquisition strategy. So in order to acquire new businesses, bring them into that company, what advice would, and we see that as a bit of a bottleneck process when they're actually making those acquisitions and trying to integrate them. So obviously finding them, this is what PE guys do, and they're supported therefore by the C-suite and their knowledge of the industry. What advice would you give on that kind of integration piece from a HR people perspective to improve a private equity firm's or portfolio company's process when they've completed that add-on deal and they're looking to then bolt it into the business?
Integration, it can be very challenging. The couple of keywords I would probably use at the very start is communication and ensuring that you have the correct data. So you know exactly what you're bringing on, and you communicate with people. Communication means a lot of by way of whether it's I'll say the typical verbal communication, whether it's written. I think integration is much about how you would bring somebody, not only just about how you bring somebody into the business, but also what are you expecting them to do for the business? Are you expecting them to do the same role? Are you expecting them to change? And having a very clear set of mission or vision or values. It's very easy to, and I said to you, using the analogy of a family, when you have the typical, I suppose, the structure of a couple of children, and all of a sudden you're bringing these stepchildren inside the family. Everyone's a bit confused. Who are they? What do they do? Where they're going? What are the guidelines? What are the rules? What are the directions? It's really good to, before you integrate, is to actually have a plan to, what is it you're trying to integrate? How are you trying to integrate? Is everyone on board? Have we got the key people on board? How are we going to disseminate the information and communicate this to those that are coming on board? It's not just the people that are being acquired, but it's the folks that are already inside the business. A lot of the challenges that I also see is the harmonization of not only just contractual conditions, but systems and processes. You create extra work for those around on top of their normal day jobs, just through the sheer fact that you're integrating them. So the C-suite need to be very clear. What are they trying to bring on board in terms of the systems and processes? What are they trying to harmonize? And identifying, maybe, as I said, I use a couple of steps and a couple of phases, and not try to eat the whole elephant at the same time. It's lovely that, you could say, oh, tomorrow we're bringing on X company, and everyone's all singing and dancing. But in reality, you may have to do it piecemeal. You may have to wait until the hive up's a particular date, then harmonize terms and conditions, and then look at an engagement. In some businesses, the engagements before anything else takes place. It's the communication. This is what's going to happen, and making them feel part of the family before the actual legal processes per se have taken place. And sometimes that works as well if you're in the position to be able to do that.
Okay, and when you say that kind of engagement side of things, how do you, or any, don't share names and specifics, but what kind of examples would you have of attempts to build that? So if I'm sat here and thinking, okay, well, that's great in building engagement. How do I actually go about doing that? Is that, bringing everybody into a room and telling them, this is what's happening, and over communication that way, or is it more personal one-to-one, or is it a mixture of everything? How does that kind of work?
It is a hybrid. It's a mix of everything, right from the very start on, notwithstanding the mandatory requirements that we have to undergo in terms of 2P and everything. But this is about having a social engagement team that you invite those guys to be part of as well, not just sidelining them. It also is including them into the people training. If there's training going on board, it's also simple things like making sure that they're on teams, so they can see the communication and the banter that goes through. It's also about the finding out or identifying what are some of the concerns that they have, and I would say most of the concerns most people have is, how will this impact me? What does this mean to me as an employee in this business? Am I going to be in a job, out of a job? Am I going to be sidelined? What does it mean? Making and trying to address these by way of, I suppose, the initiatives, the engagements that you do with these people will really, really help a business integrate smoothly. The worst type of integration you could do is just literally surprise them and say, "Hey, by the way, you're coming over now. You're now part of this group or part of this business," without even really sharing with them the process and the steps. You're bringing them on this journey with you. You have to keep them on this journey with you. And it's okay for a business to say, well, actually, I don't know at this moment, but we do envision this is going to take place. We would like your input into this, where you can get input into that. We recently put together a social engagement team. As I said, it really helps. When businesses have what we call town halls or group meetings, to include them as well. So they don't feel that they're the outsider to the business. And even so, to the name, are you going to change the name of the business? Are you going to keep their identification? Very important. And the logos and the branding. So the HR is really just one small piece in the complete picture of integration. It's not all about HR. It involves so many other functions inside that area, inside that piece.
Okay, so we talked about talent, which is my favorite subject, and getting those right people into the business. And I'm sure, as being HR lead, that's been an integral part of your role, and balancing that with the growth of the business and when to hire, when not to hire. What mistakes have you seen kind of portfolio companies making on the hiring process, and what could they do to change that or improve their process?
Maybe it's not just typical of portfolio businesses, but businesses in general. It's the panic hire. If you can imagine, football teams, when they go to play football, they never just bring one person, a substitute. They will bring a bench of people, and they'll always have succession planning somewhere in there. It's almost akin to that within a business. It is really important, I think, especially for the portfolio businesses, when they come on board, they identify their bench very fast. They identify their succession planning very fast. They can use tools like the 9-box grid. I'm a fan of one of those type of tools where it helps identify, who are the successors, who's the bench, who do we need to engage, who's misaligned in their roles. And then once you've identified that, you can then apply what a flight risk register, very much like the health and safety risk registers, and you identify roles which are critical to the business. Do you have enough people inside those particular roles? If not, focus on building or even knowledge sharing. The recruitment is almost it's the outcome of not having those pieces in place, and suddenly Joe leaves because he's found another job or whatever the decision is, and the business is in a complete panic at this point because they don't have a successor, they don't have the bench, and Joe happens to be a vital piece of the finance team, happens to be in the billing, and the business can't survive. And therefore, all they're doing is then they just hire for the sake of hiring, rather than think about it. Recruitment should be, okay, have you thought about the process? Have you thought about why you're hiring? And not just creating, just bringing on another person just for the sake of replacing someone else. Think about, question, can this process be done differently? Can it be automated? Can it be assigned somewhere else? Or is actually the person's role that there's a vacancy? Is it a real vacancy they need? If it is a real vacancy that's needed, then hiring somebody that is comfortable working within the PE business, within the PE portfolio, is really important. I find it's more important to hire the more senior the hires that we have. PE is about delivering. You've got to be able to deliver, and it's not for everyone. And there are some people that are uncomfortable with that pace, and that's absolutely fine. But it's again, it's the hiring talent. It's really important you develop and you retain your own talent. Of course, there will be times you need to recruit, but I try not to encourage what I call panic recruitment, and it's more of a strategy and a reason for why we recruit.
Yeah, I completely agree. And looking at the private equity side, you said that particular individual to have that familiarization with private equity, not always the case. Although yes, we recommend our clients, especially at C-suite level, hire from within industry and within private equity backed experience. But in the occasions, well, in fact, what do you see as the separation from somebody in the private equity world and understands that, against somebody who maybe hasn't worked in that environment? What do you see as the kind of characteristic or performance type differences from private normal world to the private equity back world?
That is a really good question, because there are definitely different traits I would look for in a senior hire. A senior hire, it's the delivery. Can they deliver the piece or whatever it is, the assignment or the work that they're assigned to do? And when we say delivery within a particular time frame, do they have the pace? Are they comfortable with change? Because in the PE world, changes happen so frequently, and sometimes it can be head turning. You could be doing one thing one day, and the next thing you could be going a different direction. And there are people that are just not comfortable with that. They like the set processes, the set ways, set direction. We are going on this journey, and this is it. We're not going to change. And within businesses, the portfolio businesses, sometimes you do change journeys. Sometimes you change direction. Sometimes you change the vehicle that you're traveling in. And for a senior hire, they've got to be comfortable with pace. They've got to be comfortable with change. They've got to have a really decision making. They've got to be able to be comfortable with decision making. One of the great things that I love about working with PE houses is that they don't take 10 years to make a decision and decide something. Sometimes I've been talking about this system for the last 5 years, and PE doesn't work that way. And I love the fact that you have an idea, suggestion, whatever it may be, recommendation, you table it. This is the reasons why. And you know what? Within less than a month, you come back. Yep, that's fine. No, it's not. And you just get on and do it. Um, that's one of the most exciting parts about working for a PE portfolio business. Not, but again, from a senior hire, they may not be used to that type of speed. That's where their comfort level, and it's a decision making. I'm not comfortable. I'm not comfortable with, I don't know, not or making a decision because I'm risk adverse. Um, and it's being risk adverse is not a bad thing, but there are, you've got to be comfortable in your own subject matter to be able to make these decisions. And PE is all about bringing your knowledge to the table and delivering that. It's a great training ground if you're inside a business who has been taken over, and you can see it from the inside. And that's great. And when I said about people use it as a career builder or resume builder, it's really exciting. But with with the what kind of traits, they've got to be able to get on with a number of people. They've got to be able to be credible. They've got to be able to, they have to be able to have that intellect, be able to put intellect into their ideas.
Yeah, I agree. I think it comes down, that accountability piece. They're used to having the buck stop at them and the growth having to happen. And that growth side, a lot of people aren't familiar with making such quick decisions and moving through things so fast and being able to take a business from X to Y. It's happy growing at 5%, 3% a year. We could be talking double-digit growth. We could be talking acquisitions of doubling the revenue in a week. There's lots had there within private equity, and therefore there's got to be some key differences between that. I'm not saying people outside, everyone comes from outside private equity at some point and comes in. It's just you're looking for that ability and that experience or the capability to be able to deliver that level. I completely agree. You mentioned you love the speed of which the decision making happens in private equity and that things can evolve very quickly. What on the contrary, what do you dislike about, or what do you hate or dislike, if hate's too much of a strong word, about the industry?
I think hate is a strong word. There isn't actually anything I feel that that I dislike. I feel that maybe with the private equity, they could do much more about promoting what it is that makes them, or why it is so exciting to be a part of their business, part of their world. I think it's at a very senior level, high level. CEOs, the CFOs, they get it. They understand what it means to be part of a PE backed business. I would love for the PE houses to get to go down further into that and drill down further, and have people understand, well, this is the world of the PE. This is why people love it, and it's not just for the senior people. It's very exciting and all around, and again, but it's the change, isn't it? It's people. Some people are really love change. Other people, they won't change their teas, or they make a tea or they make a coffee because they just don't like it. And I think there isn't any criticism. I just think the PE houses would be, if I was looking at them and saying how would I communicate, I'd say the excitement of joining them. Really, it is a great world to be part of.
I agree. It's a fantastic industry, and does a lot of good for although you hear about all the bad, obviously bad news travels faster than good, but what it does to transform businesses, transform local economies, global economies, invests in companies, saves them from the brink of death for a lot of places, and then also accelerates those businesses significantly and gives people fantastic careers and brings and gives that back. Private equity, there's no the top of the business, and the leaders of the company do well out of it because the private equity firm allows that to happen. Whereas in private companies, the owner tends to take a lot of the the capital and a lot of the win, but it gives everybody that opportunity through equity to win and win together. So I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. And the private equity house are more inclined to take those risks and to address those challenges and or meet those challenges head on, as opposed to, I suppose, a bank or something like that. If you take out a loan and you said to your bank manager, "Hey, I'm thinking of completely changing the business model," I think your bank manager may have a few things to say about that. But within PE house, they'll be, "Okay, well, what is it that you want to do? Why do you think it's going to succeed? How is it going to work?" Okay, and bring it on board. Let's see what happens. It's it's the PE houses are fairly good at getting the right team together. That's what I find, and that comes with experience. It comes with knowing the right people for that right business, and it's having or making sure that the portfolio business is ready and understands really what they're taking, what is going to happen to them. You almost need a pre-part before they sign that document to say, this is the excitement, this is what's going to happen, this is what you're signing up for. Yeah.
Absolutely. Have you? So, where do you get your influences from? What do you read? Do you watch? Do you listen? Where does your inspiration, further intellect, CPD, whatever you want to call it, where do you get that from, Nancy?
From a number of sources. I've been very lucky to have worked with some great chairmen and CEOs, and that they have all come with their own experiences, and we've all had scars across our back. It is okay to have those scars, as long as you don't keep repeat them. And I've been lucky to be part of a lot of different businesses. So I've been open to see how they have worked, different industries, and interestingly enough, what you would probably think, oh, those industries are completely different. What would one have with the other? They're actually very similar. If you take out all the dressing, they are at the heart of it. People work, and people, want to be treated with respect. And it doesn't matter if you're in the care industry, if you're in the fintech, or if you're in the telecoms industry, or whatever industry you're in. It all comes down to pretty much the same. It's just the dressing or the outside of it that's just different. I, am a great avid reader of the of different non-HR areas. So, in terms of business, in terms of understanding and speaking with different people, not just HR folks. So yes, obviously the CIPD is a great forum. We get a lot of information from there, but also stepping out of that forum, you talk to the finance, the CFOs and their forums, and how do they perceive that? And it's also in terms of, the other private equity businesses and other private equity houses. So it's I think I'm very privileged to have had that wealth of experience by mere fact that I'm able to have these conversations with different people at different levels. And as I said, that their scars across their backs. When you ask them what's failed, not what's been great, what's failed, and obviously, there'll be a moment say, well, this wasn't good. This don't repeat this. This wouldn't happen again. People love to hear that, and not everything's rosy. Things do, either poorly applied, poorly implemented, poorly designed. But that's how you learn, and that's how you share. And knowledge sharing is important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the learning off other people is absolutely key. If you can sit down with someone and learn about their mistakes and what's both mistakes and also achievements, you can obviously leverage that and saves you having to do it certainly yourself. And can save you a lot of time and a lot of pain, as you put it, save you a few scars on the old back. So makes sense. So Nancy, if anybody wants to reach out to you today and wanted to drop you a message or ask kind of further questions or get some further insight, how's best that they reach out to you?
They can reach out from my website. It's barneshrconsultancy.com. and they can message me through there. And I'd be happy to help them or to answer any of their questions.
Perfect. We'll put that in the show notes. Well, Nancy, thank you very much for joining us. I really appreciate your insight today. It's been really great.
Okay, thank you very much.
And as always, to our listeners, thank you very much for joining us. And of course, should you ever need support with private equity professionals or portfolio executive hiring, please do reach out to me at Raw Selection. And if you can do, please do subscribe and you'll be notified of our next podcast. We release them every 2 weeks. But till the next time, keep smashing it, and thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Private Equity Podcast on www.raw-selection.com.